The people you judge are often reflections. You don't just see people, you interpret them. Every glance, every word, every silence is filtered through a lens that wasn't formed overnight. It was built from experience, from pain, from what you were taught to notice, and what you learned to fear. Most of us don't realize it, but we're not responding to people as they are. We're responding to who they remind us of, to what they reflect back at us. You call someone too loud because you were once shamed for speaking up. You call them needy because you never felt safe expressing your own needs. You roll your eyes at someone's confidence because it highlights the self-worth you've never fully claimed. This isn't about judgment, it's about recognition, about projection. You don't hate them. You hate the part of yourself they bring to the surface. Our minds are wired to protect us, and one of the easiest ways to avoid pain is to disown it, to bury it so deep we forget it ever existed. But disowned pain doesn't disappear. It leaks. It leaks into how you view others, into your relationships, into how quickly you become defensive, how harshly you criticize, how easily you disconnect. Not because those people are dangerous, but because they trigger something unresolved inside you. And the scariest part, we rarely realize it. We say they're the problem without realizing we're staring at a mirror cracked by the moments we never fully faced. That's why certain people affect you more than they should. Why small comments sting more than they logically should. Why you can't explain your reactions, only feel them. You're not broken, you're patterned. Your triggers are old survival scripts, written in moments where you were too young to understand what was happening, but old enough to remember how it felt. Now, when someone mirrors that feeling, your system flares up, and you respond with criticism, avoidance, or withdrawal, not because of who they are, but because of what they awaken in you. This is the work. Recognizing the reaction isn't the problem, it's the clue. And until you face what it's pointing to, you'll keep cycling through the same emotional dynamics over and over. Different people, same pain. Healing starts when you stop blaming the mirror and start tending to the reflection. Because the truth is, you don't react to people who are different from you. You react most strongly to the parts that still live in you, the ones you haven't yet healed. Projection is the mind's way of offloading what it can't hold. It's not a flaw, it's a defense. When something within you feels too uncomfortable, too shameful, or too unresolved, your subconscious tries to push it outward. It's like a psychological mirror you don't know you're holding, and suddenly, the traits you don't want to see in yourself begin showing up in everyone around you. That's why the things you judge most harshly in others are often the very things you secretly fear exist in you. You accuse someone of being selfish, when really, you've spent your whole life giving to the point of burnout, resenting others for taking what you never learned to give yourself. You label someone arrogant, when the truth is, you wish you had even a fraction of their self-belief. But you were taught to keep your confidence small and your presence quieter. The psyche protects itself through stories. And those stories often begin with the assumption that they are the problem. Not because that's the truth, but because it's safer than admitting that what you dislike in others is something you haven't yet accepted in yourself. It's not comfortable, it's not obvious, but it's constant. And it runs in the background of your decisions, your relationships, and your sense of identity. Projection doesn't only show up in criticism, it appears in admiration too. You see someone living boldly and think, they're so lucky, when really, you're looking at a version of yourself you buried. You see someone pursuing their dream and feel envy, not because they're better than you, but because you abandoned your own dream long ago, and it still aches in silence. And this is the catch. Projection distorts reality. You're no longer seeing the person for who they are. You're seeing your fears, your longings, and your suppressed self wearing their face. And the more unaware you are of this process, the more controlled by it you become. But once you recognize it, once you start noticing that pattern, something powerful happens. You stop reacting blindly. You start asking, what is this really about? You begin tracing the emotion back to its origin. And in that moment, the projection becomes a pathway, not to judgment, but to healing. Because ultimately, projection isn't just a psychological defense. It's a spiritual compass. It's pointing to the parts of you that are still waiting to be acknowledged. Every time you feel the urge to criticize someone, pause. Not to suppress it, but to examine it. Because criticism is rarely just about the other person. It's a flashlight, pointing at a wound or a value you haven't fully made peace with. Your reaction says more about you than it ever does about them. Maybe you find yourself judging someone for showing off online. But what if their self-expression threatens the part of you that was told to stay invisible to survive? What if their joy, their celebration, their openness activates the shame you've been carrying for wanting the same freedom but never giving yourself permission? Jealousy works the same way. It's not just envy, it's information. It reveals what matters to you, not what someone else has, but what you're denying yourself. You don't envy the person. You envy the version of yourself you believe you could be. If only you were allowed. Jealousy isn't toxic by itself. Suppressing it is ignoring it, is because, when you look deeper, jealousy often points to unlived potential, to the goals you've buried under fear, responsibility, or self-doubt. And then there are the triggers. The sharp, sudden reactions that don't seem to match the moment. Someone interrupts you and you feel rage. Someone gives feedback and you feel humiliation. Someone disagrees and you shut down completely. It's not that the situation was harmless, it's that it touched something far older. Something rooted in rejection, or abandonment, or feeling unsafe. Your present reaction is being fueled by past pain. Here's the key. Your emotional responses aren't random. They're patterns. They're signals from the nervous system, from a self that learned long ago what felt safe and what didn't. And most of that learning wasn't based on truth. It was based on survival. Criticism, jealousy, triggers. These aren't flaws to be ashamed of. They're invitations. They're doors back to the origin of your beliefs. The moments when you learned you had to shrink, perform, stay small, stay liked. They point to the systems you created to be accepted, and the parts of you that got locked away in the process. When you meet those moments with curiosity instead of defense, something shifts. The trigger becomes a teacher. The jealousy becomes a map. The criticism becomes a mirror. And you stop reacting. You start reclaiming. You start realizing that emotional maturity isn't about not being triggered. It's about knowing exactly what the trigger is trying to show you. It's about saying, this reaction isn't the enemy. It's evidence. It's showing me what still hurts and what I'm ready to heal. Because when you stop running from your reactions, you begin remembering who you were before the world told you to forget. Healing isn't just an internal upgrade, it's a total rewrite of how you perceive the world. The more you heal, the less you take things personally. Not because you've become indifferent, but because you've finally separated someone's behavior from your worth. You stop assuming that rejection means you're not enough. You begin seeing that most people act from their wounds, not from your flaws. When you're hurt, everyone looks like a threat. Confidence looks like arrogance. Boundaries look like rejection. Silence feels like abandonment. But when you've done the work, when you've met your inner child, faced your past, sat with the hard emotions instead of hiding from them, your filters start to clear. You begin to realize, most of the time, people aren't trying to hurt you. They're trying to protect themselves. Just like you were. It doesn't make you passive. It makes you powerful. Because healing teaches you to respond, not react. To hold space instead of escalate. To sense when something isn't about you, and to stop pouring energy into fixing what was never yours to carry. That is emotional freedom. The ability to observe, understand, and choose your response, even in the heat of a moment. And here's the beautiful twist. As your inner world calms, the outer world softens. The people who used to trigger you suddenly feel neutral. The traits that once annoyed you become curiosities, not attacks. You find compassion where there used to be judgment. And that doesn't mean you excuse harmful behavior. It means you no longer absorb it. You no longer let it shape your identity. Healing also shifts how you love. You stop choosing people who mimic your trauma. You stop trying to earn love through performance. You stop chasing those who withhold and start valuing those who show up consistently. Because you're no longer trying to fix the past through your present relationships. You've made peace with what was, and now you're choosing based on what you deserve. This is the unseen gift of inner work. It's not just about feeling better, it's about seeing clearer. You stop building your world from the blueprint of your pain and start building from awareness, from truth, from power. And when that happens, your standards rise, your energy shifts. You don't have to explain yourself anymore. Your presence speaks for itself. You'll know you're healing when your compassion increases and your tolerance for chaos decreases. You'll know you're healing when you no longer chase closure from people who can't give it. And you'll know you're healing when you finally understand not everyone is your mirror anymore, because the reflection is finally whole. You don't heal just to feel better. You heal to become who you were meant to be before the world started distorting your reflection. Because unhealed pain doesn't stay hidden, it leaks into everything, into how you speak, how you trust, how you show up when no one's watching. Every choice you make, who you tolerate, what you pursue, what you avoid, is shaped by the level of healing you've allowed. That's why real growth doesn't always feel like becoming something new. Sometimes it feels like remembering, like peeling away the layers of fear, doubt, and shame until what's left is you, unfiltered. When you do this work, everything changes. Your relationships get clearer, your boundaries get sharper, your goals get bolder. Not because life gets easier, but because your lens is no longer fogged by old wounds. You start choosing from truth, not trauma. You stop performing. You start creating. You stop reacting. You start leading. And maybe the most powerful part, you begin to see others differently too. You stop needing to fix them, to convince them, to prove yourself to them. You understand that everyone is at their own stage of healing, and that your peace no longer depends on how they treat you, but on how deeply you've reclaimed yourself. This isn't a one-time breakthrough. It's a lifestyle. A decision you make daily to stop projecting and start owning. To stop blaming and start evolving. To stop looking for mirrors and start becoming light. Because when you heal, you don't just change your life. You change the way you live it. And that, more than anything, is how you begin to lead quietly, powerfully, unshakably, from within.